We can share my screen. All right, do you all see that agenda?
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, so let's start with stand-ups. I can go first, but I can't see who's on the call, so I can't call on people, so people just go after me. Yeah, so what is everyone working on right now? Well, I did just review, I was a little slow to this. I think I was a week late to what I said I was going to do, but review the feedback on our grant application and just come up with a solution for, or at least an alternative to our original proposal to build software for the voting mechanism. Thank you to Harold for your comments about Policy Kit. I think that looks like a pretty promising alternative or solution that we could look into. So I was just looking into that before this, and right before that, closing out some issues that we had already tackled in the last couple of weeks. What else? I also had a conversation with Russ and Jonathan, who, as you all know, have been working on this bot for Discord, this open source bot that should help with decentralized moderation. We'll be able to, well, actually we can test it in Discord now. So if you're interested, we can invite you to the test server. But the big draw of that bot is that all moderation would be transparent. It would be decentralized. All community members could take part in it, and we would know exactly where that moderation data is going because we've set up our own hub for that. So we're also planning to apply for a grant for that bot. So I'll report back on that when we have a more solid doc available. But I think we're planning to apply for one next week. So I'll report on that soon in the governance channel. But that does it for me. And oh, I see participants now. Jason, would you like to go next? Oh, wait, sorry. I have no blockers. And over the next 2 weeks, as I said, planning to apply for a grant for that bot and also to submit our current open grant application with new revisions and comments on our proposal. Yeah, over to you, Jason.
All right, so on my end, I have just been kind of working through some of the GitHub stuff, which is usually where I've lived lately. So just this last week, I merged in a PR that covered some of the standard operating procedures. And I did a major sweep and kind of looked over the content we have and kind of searched around and to see what's next. And I've actually applied for a grant as well. I just threw that in there. We'll see it. It's also listed here as an action item. So when we get down there, we'll see a little more detail on it. And the biggest thing that I could use from everyone is just some comments or thumbs up, or, if you see something I missed or something you want to add. It's really more of a community effort, but I want to have some focused time to really get things caught up and to put a good procedure in place. So that's the biggest thing for me coming up over the next 2 weeks. And I don't have any blockers outside of that. And that's it for me.
Thanks, Jason. Harold, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thank you, Connie. Currently, as Jenny mentioned, I just recently going over a white paper for Policy Kit and looking over some of the possibilities for maybe helping out Jude and all of the work that he's involved in with this mainnet launch. Instead of coming up with an application from scratch, looking at what Policy Kit can do for us. We can get into a little bit more of that later if we want to. Also been looking at putting together some type of, motion graphics for the grant application, as well as the SIP proposal drafts that we've discussed here before, as it relates to some of the indigenous protocols efforts that we hope to bring into the ecosystem, as well as some of the digital fabrication and maker world merging efforts that we'd like to bring in. I know there's a lot going on in all of those different documents, so I'd like to put together a graphic on some of my more recent thoughts on exactly how we can approach a STEAM education prototype with Ron Eglash. With all of his expertise, we've been able to narrow down, what exactly our first approaches can be for STEAM and education and indigenous modes. So this is a brief of what I've been working on as of late. Excited to get into this meeting and hear other stand-ups. Excited to see these other grant applications come through as well.
Thanks, Harold. Ryan, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I'm excited to see that Jason's came through like right when we're on the call. I was like, I knew it was coming, but yeah, it's always nice to see them come into your inbox when the grants come in. So thanks for submitting that, Jason. Yeah, and same for Harold when yours comes in too. I'm actually going to be talking to another STEAM educator person tomorrow. So I'm going to send you some information because maybe they might fit in with what you're doing. Yeah, so we'll see, but I'll also do that over Discord. But yeah, so from my end, just getting the word out about the grants program and looking at specifically partnerships, especially with the Stacks 2 being where it's at, because some people will want to get, like they just get hung up on their idea needs Stacks 2 or whatever. So I'm looking at doing partnership side of things too. And yeah, so moving forward with that. And if there's any questions around that, happy to take recommendations from people. If you have like an idea of, especially any blockchains that are like something related to ETH that's privacy, like I've been looking at 3box, for instance, and any of the developers within that space might be interested in grants too. So yep, just kind of jumping in research in there. So super open ideas. If you have anything at all, please ping me and let me know. Happy to reach out to people.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm gonna skip over Brittany because I assume that you'll give the foundation update, which is essentially your stand-up, and go over to Juliet. See if you have a stand-up you'd like to share.
Hello?
Hi, Juliet.
Okay, you can hear me. Good.
Yeah.
So I did take a look at the grant a couple of times and added a little more information, just follow up on who was going to lead different projects. So I'm sure you noted that. And then on my own, I'm working on a grant proposal that's relevant to smart contracts. So you should see that. You should all see that by next Tuesday.
Excellent.
Yay. So exciting. Does it have anything to do with Clarity tools? Or no?
No, it doesn't have to do, it may have some, I mean, it's not directly relevant to Clarity tools, no.
Okay, just curious. All right, thanks everyone for your stand-ups. Brittany, would you like to give your foundation update?
Sure, I'll put on my video, let's see. Hello. Yeah, so the foundation, we've been really working on our grants process and making sure that we have a faster, efficient process to approve grants. And as we're doing that, the number of grants has slowed down. So I'm really happy to hear about all these grants coming in, because I think some people are formulating their ideas. We're set up now to make it much faster and easier to get your grants reviewed and approved. So we still have a weekly cadence. So yeah, looking forward to reading those on that end. Another thing that we're working on the foundation is just around Stacks 2 launch. So we're supporting some of the other initiatives in the ecosystem, including mining. So Damon Technologies got a grant funded for a mining bot. So if you're interested in setting up for mining, either on testnet or on mainnet, we will be helping to sponsor some of the rewards that will go out to people who are set up on mining. So you don't need any heavy equipment. You basically can run this mining bot as a way to participate in mining and use the test BTC. So eventually you'll need real Bitcoin to mine on the network, but in the meantime, just testing it out, testing for bugs or any issues, that's what we're looking for. And there are rewards for doing that. So that can be a good way to get involved too, if you're a little more technical. And then with Stacks 2, we're going to be code complete December 15th. That's the dead date. So from there, it's just, again, like taking the time to experiment, doing testnet smart contracts. If you want to see anything built, if you're like, wow, if this thing existed, this would be great. Those would be great items for wish list grants as well. So even if you're not on the technical side of the grants, this could be another way to just kind of throw those ideas out there. So that's another thing we're working on. That's my update. No blockers. And the next 2 weeks, yeah, hopefully more grants will be in and we'll be able to give feedback on those. Thanks.
Thanks, Brittany. Are there any questions on any of Brittany's updates or any of the stand-ups? I'd forget to ask that sometimes.
I know I had a question for wish list grants in particular. So, I know we have a few that are on the list now. So it's kind of a two-part question. First is, when picking up, or if you were going to do a wish list grant, should you comment or update on the existing issue, or should you create a new grant and link the two? So that'd be the first question.
Yeah, good question. I think commenting on the existing one works, or if you want to issue it as a new proposal, because I think some of the specifics of like, who the team is and what are the milestones, all of that stuff would need, to actually complete a full application level. So maybe creating it as a new one and then linking back is a good way to do that. But that hasn't been tested yet. So good question. But I do think maybe making it its own grant, a new grant, is easier for us to track kind of like the grant number and who owns it and any updates to it over time.
Excellent. And then the other side of that, for creating a wish list grant, how much information is required? I mean, is it really just get your idea out there? Should there be a basic structure, or how do you feel about those?
Yeah, I think I would err on the side of we'd rather have more out there than, even if they're more concise, than people not creating them because they feel like it's like a lot of effort and work to kind of put them in there. So we've debated whether we should just have like an open forum post where people can put in ideas for wish list, and then if there's traction on them, then they can get elevated to like an actual submission to GitHub, or not. I'd be curious your feedback on that, because that again is like something why we're in like the beta phase. Like we haven't fully determined a path, but we do want more rather than less.
I do have the forum area set up for that, ready to go. So there's people who have submitted some in there who are just like conversational level, like, what do you think? So I think there's 2 or 3 in conversation there in the forum now.
Perfect. So yeah, let's use that. Maybe you can drop the link, Ryan, in this chat, and then in the Discord channel for this too. That'd be great.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I finally had an idea. So I was like, all right, how do I get this into the next phase? And I was starting to look at that because I just submitted this other grant anyway. So that's some great info. Thank you.
All right, shall we move on to action items, everyone?
Okay.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I guess we can go through these first. There were some that I recently closed that I think is just worth, I just think are worth reviewing because they were recent issues. So yeah, why don't we do that? But after going through these, Jason, would you like to go through the top 2?
Yes, yeah. So the top one there is just a kind of a linked issue to the grant that I just put together. Basically, the idea behind this grant is we've done so much as a working group and to stay organized and to live here on GitHub that I would like to really go through and get things cleaned up, mainly like the calls table and establishing a better standard operating procedures. Because even though I just updated it, it feels like there's some questions out there, how and where do we upload the YouTube video, and what are we going to use for meeting conference software, and if I wanted to set up a meeting, how do I do it? So some of those questions are answered, some are still open, and the grant itself is just to make sure I have the time to really dedicate and get things up to date, and to try and make a process much like we have that's very simple for anybody to emulate moving forward. So that's really all this one is, and you're welcome to comment here or comment on the grant. But all the information, the details and the outline of what I'm planning to do are outlined in 6 milestones in the grant. So that's this one.
Great. Should we close this out, Jason?
I was going to leave it, Well, let's leave it open until next meeting, and we'll just kind of see where that grant process goes, because part of the process was requesting community feedback.
Mhm.
So I wanted a way to be able to bring it up on this call with the working group, to be able to show it to people on Discord, and probably after this meeting, we'll say at the 1 week point, if there is some movement or if I've got an idea of what's going on, we can close this out by next meeting for sure.
Okay. So let's go back.
All right, and this was a
This
real
one?
quick one. So I submitted a PR recently that I merged as part of my stand-up. So that was PR number 100, and the agenda meeting templates or issue templates didn't work correctly. And it looks like I've got an extra character in there. I just need to add some parentheses. Should be an easy fix, but Lane and, big shout out to Lane and Frieger both. They jumped right in and they were like, oh, here it is. Here's the little thing to fix. So we'll have that up and running. What this does is when you create a new issue right now, you have the option to select the agenda as a template. And this will also add items for action item, discussion item, or Stacks Foundation item. It'll automatically add the label. So it just makes life a little easier as you're trying to add things to this repository.
Awesome. Thanks for doing this, Jason. This does make life a lot easier, I will say.
Simple is the goal. That's where we want to be.
Okay. We want to keep this open or we want to close it?
This one will be open until it's fixed.
Okay. All right. And this one, I can quickly go over it. Thank you both. I thank you for the inspiration. It indeed did inspire. I think I opened up another issue for this where I got longer commentary from both Ryan and Harold, but I'm blanking on where it is. It might be in meeting discussed. No, actually it's here. What am I saying? It just wasn't loading. Yeah, thank you for this. Just to scroll through and let everyone see all of the great feedback I got. An update on this is that I did actually have a call with an agency last week called Creator House, and they're working with us on a bunch of mainnet launch things, and one of their deliverables is an ecosystem graphic. So this conversation was helpful for me in talking that person through what we're looking for, as well as a proof of transfer graphic. So I'm actually really excited about that because I feel like we're all so embedded in our ecosystem and so familiar with proof of transfer at this point that we all have a hard time explaining both of those things in a way that makes sense to someone who's not familiar with Stacks at all. So I had a really long and productive conversation with this designer. And for the proof of transfer one, which wasn't addressed in this issue, we'll have like two separate diagrams, one for miners, one for stackers, and the diagram should also come together to show proof of transfer. And I think that will be next to wherever we decide to publish them will be right next to the ecosystem graphic, and both will be super helpful for educating new users and new members. So thank you all for your feedback on this. And I am so excited to show you the mock-ups whenever we get them. I think that they are scheduled to come in around December 4th. So I'll be sure to update this this issue with that when I get them. I just want to look at this again. This is really great, Harold, by the way. It's super helpful. Okay. Review one page. So I just put this action item up for everyone else in the group. Harold, did you want to talk about this, or is there further feedback that you'd want in support of this issue?
Yeah, I can talk about it briefly.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Conley, for putting it up again. And yeah, I know the best thing for this may be actual calls, whether individual or group. So I'm still looking forward to that. I have somewhat of a group Discord set up, so I know I can reach out to folks and get availabilities. But it's also, I just wanted to say here that there's a slight distinction between these one pages here and the grant proposal draft linked up, where And that is that these are meant to be turned into actual SIP proposals eventually. And the grant proposal does stem from these, but it's a separate thing in its own. So I just wanted to say that. But thank you kindly again, Jenny, for putting this up for us. And I'll be in touch with folks to be a little bit proactive on my side to get some feedback from folks on all of the different things going on in, on the digital fabrication side of things, as well as the indigenous protocols side of things. So, yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Harold. All right, Jason.
All right, so this is just another quick little issue we were running into with Doxify on some of our pages that we have hosted. So if you were to go to actual stacksgov.github.com/resources, you would get the resources repo in web page form. And right now, some of the links to like local PDF files are resulting in 404s. So this is something that I have on my list to look at, but it's also part of why I'm filing the grant, because some of the stuff I can get in and fix real quick, but then another issue comes up and I want to have that time to like fix it, really test it, really get into it and go a little deeper. So this one is just an open issue at this time and is something that I'm working towards fixing.
Got it. Okay. Lane isn't here. Do we want to go into this at all or talk about this, or should we just save it for when Lane is on?
I'm curious about the links in there, kind of related to the policy kit conversation we were having earlier. I think that, yeah, policy kit is in here as well. So that comes from the MetaGov group, and that would be somewhat related to those items we're talking about with the grant and developing the voting proposal. But aside from that, I don't have much more to add from this issue directly.
Okay. I think what I can do is I can link this issue in the voting mechanism issue just for a reference.
Yeah,
so
yeah. If you
everything is
just
there.
put the issue number in there, all
Yeah.
the rest happens automatically.
Great. Okay. Do you want to talk about these two, Jason? Or actually,
Sure.
just this
So
one.
this one I actually included as part of the grants as well. And this is something that we've talked about before. We were looking at possibly having, instead of it being this big long URL at github.io, we could use a subdomain at stacks.org. So it would be resources.stacks.org. We could also use another domain or something different if we wanted it to be separate, but that was, this is more of an infrastructure type item. It was not possible at the time. I do not know if it's possible now, but I set it forth as part of the 6-week schedule of the grant, so we can try again. And so this one will remain open until either an action is taken or we decide we're not going to go this route. But no, nothing is needed at this time for input on it.
Okay. And this we've talked about. I know we've talked to Jason. I don't know if you want to add any details here. I think we're pretty familiar with this issue.
Sure. So at the end of this one, we decided that we could at least move forward with a shared Zoom Pro account for now and keep things as they are. And then if we wanted to make any changes in the future, we could migrate and do so as far as our recordings. The last place we actually left off with this, Ryan, did you have any update on some kind of community account or something we could all use together?
I know it's something that like Brittany and I talked about. I think Brittany was on the call last time too and mentioned it's definitely something we could do.
Okay, so that would be basically, we just want to make sure we put good operating procedures around it. Like, here's how you access it, here's how you moderate it, and some of those basics. But that's why this one's still open. And I think there's not much more we're going to add until we actually have the product in hand and we're ready to show it to everybody. So that's
Okay,
this one.
so it's probably easiest for me or Brittany or I to sign up for it and then share the key kind of thing once the protocol is set up.
Yeah, exactly. And I do, as part of the grant, I want to look at, how we can manage who has access to what and keep that list and just keep that top of mind. Because if somebody wants to come in and help, we want to give them that ability. And we don't want something like, oh, you need 10 steps to get set up in Zoom. That's only done by one person is kind of a blocker. But if that's where we start, that's where we start, and we'll make it better as we go as well. So that's where this one leaves off.
if we're not against it, I actually just upgraded my personal account, just because I kind of anticipated needing it for things like this. And I was messing around with Zoom last night, and I think that you can make it so that you set up certain members as admins for a specific meeting. So if we wanted to, we could use mine, since Ryan, Brittany, you haven't upgraded your accounts yet. But if we want like just a straightforward community account, then we don't have to do that.
I'm not picky on that. The biggest thing is how we do our recordings. Like, one of the things I'm going to have to go back and do now is look at what we're missing in the call table, and we'll have to find the recordings for each video. Which ones have I downloaded? Which ones haven't I? If I didn't download them, where do they live? So some of those questions come into play, but I don't see it being much different using yours or using one from the foundation, as long as we have an easy way for other people to moderate and be a part of it.
Cool. Let me just put a note here then that
And Brittany, do you have a preference either way?
We at the foundation, we do have an upgraded account, so we pay for our account. So I think we can add admins. I'm
okay.
just not sure how restricted those, like if they're hosting a meeting, if it gets really restricted, because I think if they are free accounts, they might get max 45-minute allocations or something. So yeah, we could test and set one up and just have it be like community at, but that would then be used by multiple people. So yeah,
I can help you set that up. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, let's do that.
I think
then.
you can add, you can basically add different users, or like you can add members to a group and just adjust their privileges for specific meetings. I could be wrong, but I was looking at this and I had no idea Zoom settings were so granular, but I think that there is a way to do this just for one type of meeting. So yeah, I can help you take a look and set us up for that.
Cool. Let's do that for sure.
Okay, so that does it for meeting action items. Let's go over to, no, you know, should have done this. Skip to discussion items. Yeah, I think we can go, there are a few here. We can go through these pretty quickly. This isn't high priority, but with like the new Stacks branding, I was wondering whether we wanted to update our governance branding at all to reflect this new branding. Again, not a priority. I like the design that we have on our repo, but if we wanted to take advantage of any of the new design resources, there's an opportunity there. Does anyone have any strong feelings about this? It could be a backlog item if not, if you don't have any strong feelings about this right now.
I vote yes, and I threw it in my grant application as well to kind of look at the Stacks design, come up with something new, and throw it back at the community for input. The icon we're using now, it was honestly just the output of a package called JDenticon that lets you generate icons. It was something that Frigger found way back. So I had generated an icon. I liked how it had triangles and it kind of looked like the Blockstack logo, and we used it, but it was nothing that I know I'm not particularly committed to it. So if we could do something with the new branding, I think it would show that, you know, our group's in alignment. It would be a nice kind of signal, but again, it's not a high priority item, but I think it would still be really nice to have. Okay.
Yeah, I think the guidelines are pretty straightforward. So with the Nexus, the logo, I think the idea is that different entities, including the community groups and projects, can use the Nexus but put it in a different shape. So you know, with Hero, it's a hexagon, and I think with I actually don't know the shapes that other entities have chosen yet, but we could, if we wanted to go simple, we could do something like that where we chose our own shape. But yeah, I'll keep this issue up, and we can put ideas here. It's not a priority. Maybe it's something that we want to get done by the time mainnet launches or something.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. And I mean, if anybody has any ideas, like, hey, I want to use this shape, or this is how I would mock it up, like, feel free to throw it in there. Definitely want anyone to be involved to whatever capacity they want to be.
Okay. So another, I mentioned this earlier in my stand-up. Thank you, Harold, for adding context here about policy kit. So okay, so basically the feedback on this milestone that we included for the voting mechanism project is that it might be a little ambitious for us to build some voting open source software ourselves, especially if we're going to rely on Jude for technical expertise and skill. And we're getting pretty close to the end of Q1 2021 timeline anyway. So because that's ambitious, I think one of the things that we talked about in our last meeting was perhaps just scrapping that software goal and instead, well, actually, that's as far as we got. So Harold suggested that we use something like Policy Kit, which we could integrate with Discord or Slack. Harold, I don't know if you want to add any like details or context to explain this a little better than I am now.
Yeah. It's originally made for platforms like Discord or Slack. But when I was looking through the white paper, it seems like it's built to fit around any platform that you want, as long as it has some important things like an auth, some type of auth that you can build into, use to build their particular API into the auth and storage and stuff like this. And so I think that just because of what we've seen Friedger do with some of the beautiful chat clients that he's used with his OI chat, I was familiar with just slapping Stacks ecosystem auth on top of a nice client and some of the nice things you can have storage wise and profile wise. And so that stuck out to me. And then as I looked further, it seemed like it's pretty expressive in the white paper. For example, to answer your question a little bit, Jenny, about can it do anything past pass and fail? I saw this particular thing they had about in their homepage. There's some type of interface that they have, Policy Kit homepage, where there's the empty document for each users that use the integration, and they put forth these policies that are part of this Policy Kit platform, so that you can actually have people add to the document like a code of conduct or something like this, based on whatever your community feels are the appropriate steps for contributions, and so it seems like that can help us for anything that we need beyond just simple check and pass, although it seems like that can get pretty expressive too with what you can write in the actual policy in the code. And so it seems like with the auth and a listener for notifications or messages is all you need, and on the application side to be able to integrate Policy Kit. So I was really hoping that maybe block survey, I don't know, how much is there in terms of notifications on the admin side of things, when you're actually doing polls and things like this on block survey, but that may be an option. And there's also a Discord bridge, I know, in the application client that Friedger has leveraged with Stacks auth already. So I was looking, I didn't mention it in the blockers earlier, but I was looking that maybe I can look into talking with Friedger, Wilson, or Harini about what's there on block survey or what's there on the I think the Matrix community has moved away from the particular client that Friedger was using, but there may be some advantages to sticking with the client that Friedger was using as well. So I may be talking with them soon about what's possible with Policy Kit with more of their technical know-how insights.
Okay, great. Thank you for giving that context, Harold. It does look really promising. And I do think, so with that in mind, what I was thinking is that the majority of the work for this voting mechanism proposal is testing different voting mechanisms to begin with. So selecting a few to test and testing them with our community, that seems to be the priority. And I assume that will take the majority of the time that we have anyway. And then rather than being ambitious and trying to build out the software ourselves by the end of Q1 2021, a goal could instead be identifying through research some possible integrations like the one that you mentioned with PolicyKit, instead of like building it ourselves. If we do get to building it, it would be a bonus, but the hard deliverable would be having a plan in place for building that out in Q2. What does everyone else think?
I think it's important to leverage what's out there. So, if we think that PolicyKit does match up as a good fit for that, then I think it would make sense to kind of steer that direction instead. But I'd have to dig into it a little bit myself. I haven't had a chance to fully review this yet.
Yeah. To be clear, this isn't, my suggestion isn't that we go with PolicyKit. My suggestion is that we scrap this goal of actually building out software ourselves in the timeline that we've laid out for ourselves, and instead do all of the testing that we say that we want to do with community on a voting mechanism, and have that be the focus of the grant. And at the end of it, actually do some research on how we can build that out rather than like trying to rush and deliver that by the end of Q1 2021. Because with the launch of mainnet, and especially if we're sort of leaning on Jude for some advising and like technical skill, I assume that like we'll be pretty pressed for time even after mainnet launches.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm excited about is, some of the things that Jude mentioned, integrity-wise for the community, related to, block stack names and stuff. It may be possible with PolicyKit, with how expressive it gets, with the policies that you can make. It seems like you can do a lot of the important quorum stuff that Jude was interested in pursuing, and some of the other good stuff that he mentioned in his presentation. So I've linked that there as well. So yeah, and I'm interested in seeing if it just works as well, if it's possible. So yeah, same thoughts here.
Thanks, Harold. Okay, well, if there are no objections, I think what I can do is respond to Brittany's feedback on our grant application that with these changes, they sound like pretty small changes we could make. And then obviously once accepted, Harold, as the lead of this particular project, we could build out some sort of project management timeline and include research and like perhaps testing of something like PolicyKit and others to give ourselves some options. So I'll include that in the comments here. Does that sound good to everyone? All right.
Sounds good to me.
Cool. I don't remember why this one is still open. I think I kept it open just because we discussed it before this. Just to remind everyone, we have identified leads for these projects. So Harold will be leading the voting mechanism project, and Juliet will be leading the code of conduct development. So that is a closed issue, which is why we don't see it here. But I don't know if Harold or Juliet want to speak to that at all, or whether there's a need for them to speak to that at all. No? Okay. We can move on. This has been up for a while. Jason, do we have a process for just putting some of these issues on in a backlog?
Not yet, but that's an interesting thing to kind of bring up. Would be either, especially now that we have the notifications coming into Discord, we could probably come up with some sort of label. And then something that I wrote down that's used in other repositories is after so much time of inactivity, something can automatically be marked stale and automatically be closed. In a sense that you could always come back and open it again, or if people are actually having conversations, then it should stay open. So we can look at that for sort of a future management type thing. But yeah, this one I haven't heard any any new information on it in quite a while. So it'd be nice if we had a way to mark that.
Okay.
Although I
can
think
go
there was a comment at the end from Frieger recently, actually.
Oh, that was quite a bit.
Remembering that, yeah, see, so we starting to think of like what we would use for certain subdomains and stuff. Okay. So,
Okay.
okay, well, I think, yeah, I don't have anything to add on this one.
All right. Jason, I assume these roles, do you want to talk about them? I assume you've included them in your grant application.
Yeah, and just trying to figure out the best way to break up the work and make things easy for people. So these roles, they've been open for a little while, but just thinking through how we can kind of divide up some of the responsibilities in an easy way. Following that one, and I'll just hit some of these high level real quick because I know like the one following those two roles was our talk about having a town hall meeting on a regular basis. I think everybody was a fan of that. We just hadn't really decided on the timeline or how we would implement it. Would we do, or what software would we do it over, like Crowdcast or something else? And the working group roadmap following that. Actually, can you jump into that one? I'm not even remembering what it is anymore real quick here. Okay, so this was, yeah, this is more like a general overview of things we could do and what we could do with the project. I don't have anything to add to this, but I will include this as something to kind of look over as part of that grant. And I'm actually going to link it in right now so I don't forget about that one.
Okay. So we can move on from this one.
Yeah, and I don't have anything else to add now, but this is part of why I want to get things cleaned up, is finding either a way to deal with some of these older issues so that they can be on a backlog and be visible, or possibly closing them out and waiting until we open new ones, kind of depending on what each one's about.
Okay. We discussed this earlier, so I think we can go over that unless, Harold, do you want to say anything else? No, y'all good? Okay. The Fireside Chat series, I recall there being some interest in this. Lane opened it a while ago, though. I don't know if it's something we feel like we can take on.
Well, I think it was something that actually the last time we talked about it, it went well with the town hall. So if we were to do a town hall where we had a speaker, and then we could do some high-level public updates for what we're up to, the two would work nicely together. But aside from that, this was just a placeholder either for who we think should be in the chats, or when we should hold them, or what we would do. And I don't have any additional updates beyond that.
Okay. Do you want to go over these last three, Jason?
Sure. So number 33, and yeah, this is interesting. So number 33 was just kind of the idea that it would be great if we could all share a Stacks ID somehow, and there is really no mechanism for that at this time, and it's a tricky problem because obviously, you know, not your keys, not your data, and we want to be able to share it, but once it's shared, there's no way to revoke it. So I think there's a lot of concepts in this, but I don't know where we would take this as next steps. So I've kept it open. I've asked for some feedback and gotten a little bit, but I don't have a direction to act on this just yet. So it'll just be an open issue for now.
Okay. Languages, translations, and community observer role.
Yeah, so languages and translations was just a reminder to us. When we did the survey, we learned that we weren't reaching everybody because the more we can be multilingual, the better. And it's just something that as we're moving forward with initiatives, how can we meet that? And then the final one for the community observer role, that, you know, we went to close it, and I forgot, someone asked if we can keep it open. So I want to, maybe we can throw that by the group again this week and just say, is there any reason to keep this open, or does this still exist as something we need at this stage, given that the foundation is up and running? I am not sure where to take this one, but it'd be nice probably to get it closed and off our list if we could.
Okay.
And it probably plays into the idea of the community board seat would be what supersedes this, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was going to say a similar thing. I think this was originally when there were more closed calls and we wanted to have a community member represent us during those calls. But yeah, this seems to feed into the board seat, which I actually don't have an update on.
There's going to be a board AMA on the 4th of December too, like Stacks Foundation board AMA. That's different than community board seat, I know.
Okay.
All right, so that does it for our discussion items. We've done well with time. Are there any other discussion points that folks want to bring up? Okay, I'll take that silence as a no. I guess like just to wrap up, we obviously went through our meeting action items and discussion items. I think some things to highlight are our grant application. We have chosen 2 leads for those projects, Juliet and Harold. Thank you again for volunteering. We'll make a small adjustment to our goals for the voting mechanism project. Jason has also put together an awesome grant application to address all of the cleanup and organization that's required for just all of our governance resources that we've accumulated over the past year. What else? And what else am I missing? Brittany gave a foundation update. And I think one thing to note there is that in today's news, the mainnet has been set to launch for January 14th, with it reaching code completion by December 15th, which essentially means that it will be done by then, and that extra month will be used for thorough testing with partners and exchanges. It's actually it's a pretty big deal that period is there because it will give miners a big opportunity to get prepped for the official launch date. I don't know if that's something that is like that the governance group has the interest in or like wants to discuss, but I think it's worth reminding everyone that once the network launches on January 14th, it will be truly decentralized. I don't think any entity will have the power to make any changes, and independent miners will be the ones to facilitate that. And as Brittany mentioned, there is a pretty hefty stacks reward going out to cover preparation of miners. I think it's 1 million stacks. So it's actually, it's huge. And yeah, I feel like it's a related governance issue, but there's nothing outstanding for us to address right now. Any questions?
I think we're good.
All right, thanks everybody. And we'll see you in 2 weeks or so.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All
Jay.
right, thank you, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody.